Hello and welcome to Outdoor Asylum. This is Brad Allen, and we are here recording and filming at the Cache River Studio here at the Elite Duck Call Shop. Here as always with producer Jake Seipert. Jake, how's it going, man?
What's up? How y'all doing? I'm ready to go jump in a river.
Jump in the river. Hey, I'll tell you what, Jake and I actually got on the river a little bit earlier this week. We went and shot some video on Cache River. And this time of year, the Cache River is hot, and it's what Jake likes to refer to as mosquito-y.
I think I got my record mosquito slap. I think I got 8 in one slap.
8's pretty good.
Pretty good for me.
Yeah, that's pretty good. That's pretty good. Guys, we are here with our guest who really doesn't need an introduction. If you are into waterfowl, if you like watching the hunting shows on television, this guy needs no introduction. We are here with Mr. Jim Ronquest. Jim is the host of RNT-V. He is also the 2006 World Duck Calling Champion. All-around good guy. Jim, thanks for making the trip from Stuttgart, man.
Man, buddy, thanks for having me. Thanks for all them kind words. I'll pay you later.
Yeah, I appreciate that. That's it won't be cheap, but it won't be too bad.
Hey, as long as you hit in the middle, we fine.
What you been up to lately? How's the family doing? How's Miss Rosie?
Miss Rosie is, man, she's mean as ever, really. You know, proof positive that I did marry up. You know, I think some folks say I outkicked my coverage.
I've been accused of the same thing myself.
You know,
yeah.
Doing well there. She's doing great. Working every day. We're just having fun. Peanut, my daughter Jenna Rose, she's this is her last day. I'm gonna brag on her a touch. She got accepted to be on the governor's intern program this year.
Wow.
Kind of sucks because it's the COVID-19. Yeah. So they normally do 12 kids for 12 weeks. They did 6 kids for 6 weeks, but she made one of the 6, and they did most of it virtual. But the past 3 days she's got to spend last week, and then 3 days this week she's got to spend some time at the Capitol. So
great, man! It's quite an honor.
That's a great experience for the kids, man. She's told me some of the stuff they've had her doing, and it's real. You know, I'm proud for her to get there. It's something that she'll remember forever.
Yeah, and you know, it's tough with everything that's going on with COVID and whatnot, but she's getting some behind the scenes in a historical part of time. Even, you know, it's local government, state government, but still, that's really impressive.
You know, it's a good point because she's kind of been all fussy. Man, I wish it was regular where I say, but to your point, when she's 25, 30 years from now, when they're talking to her kids about it, she's going to say, well, yeah, I was there when Governor Asa Hutchinson was doing this and that. So I think it'll be more important in the long run than she thinks.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. You know, doing this podcast, I've had good friends on for the most part so far. You know, we're this fairly new podcast, and one thing I always love is, even though these guys that I've known for a long time, good friends, we get in here talking, I always learn something about them just from doing this that I didn't know before when they came in as a guest. You know, and I've been fortunate to be on with you a time or two with RNT-V, and you got to interview me a little bit. I'm happy to be able to turn the tide on you just a little bit.
Man, I think it's pretty cool. I'm honored that you asked me over.
Well, thank you. We're gonna break you down psychologically to start with. Just lay down on that couch right there, get comfortable. We're gonna talk. Yeah, we're gonna talk about your inner child. And
watch this watch.
Yeah, man. Let's well, in all seriousness, let's go back a little bit. Tell me about your childhood. Where did you grow up?
Man, everybody asks that because I come from a unique background, I reckon. This is home. I've lived here longer than I've lived anywhere, but my dad worked for a large civil contractor. They did big manufacturing facilities. They did locks and dams. They did bridges and whatnot. And Dad was a project manager. A pretty good job, but every time you'd finish a job, he'd get transferred from point A to point B. So growing up, man, I was originally from kind of south central Missouri, a little bit in the Ozarks. You know, Dad was a big bird hunter, and of course turkeys and waterfowl. My dad and his dad were into dogs really good, which I am too. But started there, and then Dad got transferred to a place in far western Kentucky, you know, near the confluence of the Mississippi and Ohio rivers. And, you know, I was a kid, like first or second grade, and of course Dad loved to hunt, and guys that worked with him were duck hunters and goose hunters, and that was kind of where my waterfowl fever really started. The fire got lit, so to speak. And from there we moved. Let's see, where did we go from there? We was there from all through grade school, middle school. I hate to say unfortunately, but I did a little bit of time in Illinois.
Well, you know, when you talk, I can hear a little bit of that Yankee in you.
Oh, see, I know you was going to try to go where I know you was going to try
Nothing
to go
against our northern brothers.
No, not at all. Not at all. But then we wound up back to Tennessee and then back to Missouri when they moved Dad back to where their main headquarters was. And then, gosh, went to work and wound up in Arkansas, and like I said, been here ever since. So this is more home than anywhere. You know,
I always think of Holly Grove with you. Is that where you pretty much where you spent most of your time? There?
Yeah, until we moved to our new house on Stuttgart side of the river.
Yeah,
we always refer to everything there as, you know, lived across the river, and people go, which one? Across the White River, you know.
So obviously, I know now it was your father taking you on your first hunts, and you learned a lot from him. So waterfowl was, I'm guessing that was that his favorite type of hunting?
You know, Dad was a big quail hunter. He was a big bird hunter. So, we had bird dogs growing up forever. He loved quail hunt, but he liked to duck and goose hunt, liked turkey hunt. So, but quail hunting, I was the short, fat kid, and Dad was about your height, long-legged. He could walk, and my granddad on Dad's side, he was even bigger and taller, and I'd go bird hunting with him, my little short, fat legs. I'd try to keep up, but they'd step over a 3-strand barbed wire fence, no problem. And I was laying on the ground trying to roll under it, and whatever I could to get there. But I enjoyed going and enjoyed doing, and I just enjoyed being in the outdoors, and was fortunate. I say to add this to the story that my whole family was interested in outdoors. Mom would go with us. I remember my mother taking me hunting in the morning and waiting in the truck for me to come back and then take me to school. My brother and sister both enjoyed the outdoors, liked hunting, fishing, shooting. So I was lucky that I grew up in a family like that. And you had two choices in my family. You either liked it or you didn't, but you was going anyway. So you just as well come along and go.
Yeah. How many brothers and sisters?
Got an older brother and older sister.
Older brother, older sister.
I was the baby.
You were the baby. I got you. So what, your father, was he a good duck caller?
He was a fair duck caller and goose caller. He Canada hunted there some. West Kentucky was big for Canada goose hunting, and he could blow a duck call and a goose call, a turkey call. He didn't study it like we do, but I did. And he had one of his good friends become a mentor of mine, a fellow named Jim Mittendorf, who was dang sure a good duck caller, at least to me he was. And he could call with his hand, and his cousin Charlie were all good duck callers, and they'd blow D2 oats or call with their hand. And I can remember listening, I'd be away from it, and I think, man, there's a duck over there, and it was them, so that was I always kind of followed that, kind of made me think, man, I want to do that one day, and the rest is history.
What kind of duck call were they using?
D2 oat.
D2 oat. And so I guess that's what you started with.
It was, and that's another funny story how that comes back around, full circle a little bit too. It was that and a Ken Martin duck call. I remember sitting on a ditch bank one day with an old Ken Martin duck call and a PS oat, and I didn't have no decoys. And I remember just seems like there was endless tons of ducks, and I remember it like it was just they'd be chattering, they'd be sailing around looking, and that ditch bank was about as wide as this room. And of course, none of them lit, but I felt like they were looking. So I was like, man, if I could do just a little bit more, we could talk them into giving up.
Yeah. Now you're known for the work that you do with cut down calls. So you were using the D2 oat there. Were they cut down? I would think about cut downs. I always think about those in more of the southern states. You're getting into Arkansas, Louisiana when you're dealing with cut down. Up north, not as much.
Well, not necessarily. See, when you get into the history of it, there's some people call it the Quincy cut. Some people call it the Illinois River cut. But, yes, it was very popular up the Illinois River. Because if you think about it, look at some of the history. There's tons of old duck clubs up the Illinois River. Very important waterfowl state. And if you study early duck calls, most of those come from Illinois. So there was a lot of people taking and modifying the old D2s in the Illinois River Valley, probably looking for something a little different. But there was a lot going on up there at the same time there's stuff going here. And there's similarities. A lot of what we call, most folks call the LA style, that's really hacked off in the front. I think that idea maybe come from Illinois. I think. I'm going to preface it with the word think, because there was so much going on at different times. Even though you couldn't get on the phone or Facebook or Google it. Man, people traveled, and along with that, John Stevens, as big as collector as he is, he's kind of found a guy, the Bean Lake Duck Call was a Doherty that may have been kin to his Doherty side that come from Kansas City to Arkansas every year in that, 30s, 40s time frame. So there was information being spread around then as it is now, but it took it longer to get there. Does that make sense? So some of those ideas
wasn't on Facebook.
Wasn't on Facebook.
Yeah,
couldn't Google it. Dang sure wasn't on Instagram. But I think there was a whole lot like duck hunters today. I think one thing's probably stayed constant is we all kind of kick around ideas a little bit back and forth. Sure, we all think we have proprietary things that makes one more special than the other one. But that being said, as duck hunters, we're always looking for that magic flute. Mm-hmm. So if you heard of somebody, man, old Brad, that duck caller he's blowing, man, that sucker sounded good, and they broke them ducks high. What'd he do different? So I think that was happening back then as duck calls were evolving as they were, and I think that's constantly been ongoing.
Yeah.
But the interesting part, back to your question, I got in a rabbit hole there. The D2s then I was blowing, you might trim on a reed or something, but they wasn't as modified as they were, as we do now. And I kind of learned that from some other Arkansas hands and got to playing with them, the late, great Lester Capps. You've probably heard his name.
Heard Lester Capps' name, yes.
And there's been several others, and I just started whittling on one, and it's kind of turned into kind of.
Did you hunt with Lester any, or just no? You did. Okay.
I did. I not a lot, because there's people. I'll probably get tarred and feathered for this, but there's a lot of folks. Everybody wants to compare themselves to Lester. They learn from Lester, and a lot of them did. Mm-hmm. I hunted with Lester maybe half a dozen times at the very most. I don't claim to be his best buddy or studied under his wing. Just was a student. When I was with him, I was like, "Oh, fella, bow duck call pretty good," and was dang good at it, and kind of got to be friends with him. We had a guide association for a little while here in Arkansas when everybody could still hunt on commercial hunt on WMAs, and all that's all in the past. However, you go to guide association meetings, Lester and I kind of buddied up a little bit, and I'd sit by him, talk to him. He was a cat. He was a lot of fun. But there's several people that will probably listen to this that knew him and hunted with him way, way more than I did. Mm-hmm.
What do you think? And I've heard that name. I never had the privilege of meeting Mr. Capps. Don't know that much about him other than what I hear from others. But his name is just synonymous. I mean, you start talking about cut down calling in the state of Arkansas. That name seems to be at the top, or at least, or maybe even the bottom of the pyramid as it goes. He was the base. So what made his call special? Or his calling special?
I think his sound. He wading off there a little bit because there's some other folks that come before him. I think it's really important in it. The fellow's an old rip. We'll back in Mr. Mallard. That being said, what you might call today the biometer style, for lack of a better term, the really hard that was Lester with a big good duck lick in there also. Mm-hmm. I mean, some really good duck lick and a good feed call. Mm-hmm. And he knew he had good sound. Mm-hmm. Probably more importantly, knew how to read ducks. He knew it's not necessarily what you did or how you did it, it's when you did it.
Right.
But he also knew when to back off and when to put it on. Mm-hmm. And I think that's the key to any good duck caller.
Sure.
Right there, But he had a unique sound, and, give props to Kirk McCullough, Steve Schultz. They really studied under him, as did some others, and hunted with Lester a lot. And it's like, man, what's this fella doing? And, in evolution being what it is, he got to where it is, Mm-hmm.
What pushed you toward competitive calling? You're talking about a totally different animal. You're getting away from out there in the woods with a cut down. Now we're getting on stage with our comp calls. When did you start doing that? Same
kind of thing. When I first heard the World's Championship, I heard on a radio piece one night, and it used to be I can remember as a kid, I used to collect stuff on my bedroom wall. I'd have pictures of ducks and turkeys and deer, probably like every other kid. You'd rip stuff out of a magazine and hang it up. And
some of those deer had bikinis on.
As I got up in high school, some of them did, you know. I mean, you had a Farrah Fawcett poster hanging up in your room, too?
I plead the fifth.
Got you. Anyway, with that, I can remember on calendars, there'd be like the Saturday after Thanksgiving, World's Championship Duck Calling Contest. And then I can remember reading articles in the major sporting magazines like Sports Afield, Outdoor Life, about they'd go on a hunt with that year's world champion. I remember reading about Mike McLemore, you know, and stuff he said. And I thought, man, that's cool. I'm going to do that. And I heard went to a seminar or went to a sports show, and I heard somebody blowing. This probably been in the late 70s. I don't know. I don't remember who it was. I don't remember who the world champion was, but I was off in the distance, and he blew a contest hail call in the microphone, and the reverb was on. You know, and it's that echo, bah, 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 and then the echo, and I was like, man, that sounds cool.
Yeah.
I said, that don't sound like a duck at all, but it sounds cool. I want to learn how to do that.
Right.
And then, as you read the stories, you know, about past world champion callers, and kind of made you think, man, them guys are duck hunters too. Because that's where I come from. I mentioned Jim Mittendorf and his cousin Charlie and my dad. They was duck killers, you know. And, of course, they weren't of the mindset to talk down about it at all. They had great respect for it. That being said, it wasn't just necessarily their thing, but they had respect for people who were doing it. Mm-hmm. You know, goose calling side too. You know, when Harold Knight won the world goose with a tube call, you know, that was a big thing to them. But anyway, as I read and learned more about the World's Championship Duck Calling Contest, and then I came and listened to it one year, and we was hunting in northeast Arkansas at that time, you know, Black River Bottom area, and I come to listen to it, and Ronnie Wright was second, and Trey won. I think it was 85. It was 85. And I remember being in the crowd listening and going, yeah, man, I want to do that. And I got to know Ronnie a little bit and got to be great friends with Trey Bow and hunted with him a bunch. And he helped me when I was running Rich and Tone Guide Service, and just, gosh, the rest is history. But I can remember sitting out there and listening to it and hearing people talk about when Ronnie blew or Trey blew, about their feed call, or about what they did and that. And I was like, man, that's really cool. Mm-hmm. You know, it's like watching a really good dog run a blind retrieve or a set of multiple marks. Man, I want to have me one of them fancy dogs one day.
Yeah.
So it's the same kind of deal.
Yeah. We had Trey on the podcast not long ago talking a lot about Ronnie Wright and all that. So when you started, so was he the first guy, Ronnie Wright, and Trey were the first guys that worked with you a little bit?
Butch and Trey, you know, I went there and I met Butch, you know, and talked to Butch. Well, I met Butch even before that. Let's see. Butch come to a DU event I was at maybe about that same time frame, you know what I'm saying? And at that time, I had won like a couple county fair contests kind of thing, you know. You couldn't call them a meat calling contest. They were just a duck calling contest at the county fair. Mm-hmm. And that kind of, I said, you know, got my feet in the fire, so to speak. And I met Butch and blew a little bit. He helped me some. And, I got a duck call and just kept practicing and went and finally won a regional. Went up to Indiana. First regional I won was I remember Trade won it one year, but I think it's called the Grand Calumet Regional. I got a homemade trophy cut out on a bandsaw with a dull blade and a slap on the back. And I was as proud as that as I was.
You still have it?
I still have it somewhere. And well, I didn't talk to Butch much at that time, you know, and I wound up showing up the shop. He said, and he recognized me. He said, what are you doing here? I said, well, I qualified for the world. And he was all happy and giddy, and I blew some. He coached me a little bit, and he coached me a lot, actually, from then on. But he said, well, heck, that's pretty good. So one thing led to another. I'll tell you experience about the first time I blew in the world. Gosh, what year was that? Around, was it the year Roy Rhodes won? I think it was 89 or 90, somewhere. And I remember being on stage and blowing, and I got about halfway through, got about to come back, and something in my head clicked. I said, man, I'm blowing what I want to blow. I felt like I was blowing pretty good. And I wasn't nervous a bit until that very point, because I knew I was going to get my butt kicked. When my head said I was doing what I thought was right.
You put the pressure on yourself.
Right. My knees went to shaking. I did what I was well known from then on, got to be very well known for. I squawked. And I said, well, crap. But I finished my deal. Of course, got cut. And I remember when I come off the stage, Butch met me when I walked out. And I remember, and he drugged me off there next to Lily's, the Radio Shack. Drugged me off in the corner, grabbed my jacket. You know how he do. He take that nub finger and he started thumping me in the chest. He said, if you wouldn't have squawked, if you figured blah, 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 you'd have been in the next round. You might have been, what'd you, blah, blah. I got a good Butch butt chewing right then. So you either had two choices there. You're either going to come back and get some more of it or go away from it.
Anybody that's had Butch, the late, great Butch Richenbach, who we both and many others just love dearly, when he was making his point and he put that nub finger, he cut what bandsaw, I guess, it'd take while he was building calls, taking the tip of that finger out. When he hit you with that nub,
oh man,
you knew it.
Yeah, and he gets you right in the middle of the chest too, where it whap, whap, whap. Yeah, and he'd always have you backed up where you couldn't get away from it. You had to take it.
I miss that guy.
Oh man, he'd thump you over the head. I can tell you stories about in the old days. Before the transplant, because we always said after Butch's transplant, it kind of softened him up just a touch. But I can remember being in the old shop and John be over there, or William, and he'd get on one of our butts really good, and you'd go back in this dipping room there, and he'd shut the door and lock it. And he'd lock it from the side, and he'd make you go back there and blow. And this time of year, you might have air conditioning on, but it'd be hot back there. Mm-hmm. And, back in the day when there was a lot of contests, summertime was practice time, And if you didn't come out there soaking wet, you'd done something wrong. And you'd stop, he'd bang on that door, keep blowing. So you'd get to blowing. Or I remember one night I got something, man, I just can't do it. But he's trying to get me to do some kind of crazy deal. He grabbed a stick of acrylic about that long, went, whop! He said, don't ever tell me you can't do nothing. And he put a knot on my head. Done the same thing to Stevens a time or two. So those are all fun days, I guess, that I don't know, kind of be fun to get back to. I
always laugh, but you're talking about him being softer after he had that heart transplant, and he told me one time that people said that he was a lot nicer of a person after he had that, and he attributed that to it was a woman's heart.
Yes,
that he'd gotten a woman's heart, and I told him, I said, yeah, you may be friendly, but I think it gave you some PMS. There's a couple times a month when I'm around you, Butch, you're pretty damn cranky.
Well, yeah. He was always cranky, but I think he got cranky on purpose.
Yeah. Yeah, I do too. So you competed, you did the duck calling competitions, and you won 2006, correct?
Yes.
And I was there that night. I was out in the crowd, I think, probably eating a corn dog. I don't think I did nearly as well as you did that particular night, but I remember watching that. And seeing your reaction, you'd done it. I mean, how many years had you done it?
Oh, I had blowed, I want to say, I won in 06. First time I qualified was 90 or 91. So it's 15, 16 years there.
Yeah.
I missed 1 year. The year 2000, the year my daughter was born. My wife loves to tell this story. I had like 9 seconds and 4/3 that year. And I remember we had a litter of puppies on the ground that was 4 weeks old. They was born on the 18th of July of 2000. My daughter was born on the 18th of August of 2000. And a week later, I went to a contest at Reelfoot and left her with 8 little Labrador puppies and a week-old baby. And her mom and sister was there helping her out. And I said, you got plenty of help. You'll be fine.
Yeah.
So I didn't qualify that year, I think, on purpose. I think the big man upstairs had a little something to do with that.
Yeah, yeah. Maybe.
Karma will get you.
Every time. But when you won, man, before then, I've said this many times, that was, I'm doing the competition calling myself and trying to evaluate, where I'm at, who's the best out there. There were a few years there, man, that if people ask me right now who's the best duck caller on the circuit right now, I would have said you.
Oh,
I said Jim Ronquest. I think is he. You had several years there where you won there at the contest you used to have in Memphis. You did very well there. Mm-hmm. Once you were very strong on stage, and for whatever reason, something would happen. I don't know, maybe bad note, maybe judges just not like what you're putting down that you didn't win up before then. But many times I had you down as my favorite to win it prior to you actually winning. But when you won in 2006, was it? How much of it, you kind of go back to the wide world of sports, how much of it was the thrill of victory, and then just maybe just some relief there after many years of doing it?
Some of both, and that's a great question because I appreciate that, and I did have some good success at some big contests. Like you said, the U.S. Open, back to back, IWAs. Big regionals with big hitters in them, and was always proud to get those wins. 99, I got closer to world. That was part of my 2000 fallacy. Is I second 99, Barney Califf, who was a great caller. I always loved Barney. He won by a point or two. And when I went back and listened to it, I seen we're perfectly okay with it. I seen where I had goofed up, and he blew well. And in 2000, not so much. And then tried to start all over again. I went a couple years there without nobody coaching. And this is anybody listening to this, if you're an aspiring contest guy, have somebody coach you, for sure. And I wouldn't. I was practicing on my own, not listening back to it. And I asked John one day, and I was blowing. He said, we need to strip you clean and start you all over again. And I did, and that led up to finally a win. I was blown good in 05. I squawked, had that deal. Man, Jimbo's got a good shot if he don't squawk. We heard that a lot. Felt bad after 05, but was proud to see John win his third and then come back in 06. And, really, I'm going to attribute that to coaching. I'd go to Butch's and practice, and that's right after his transplant, so he couldn't go uptown. Wasn't a lot of people coming around, and we'd have time. We'd practice it, and it got comfortable, and I got comfortable with it. And when I blew, I remember that night. It's funny. I know you're the same way. I bet you can remember each one of your 3 wins pretty well. But I remember blowing the first round. I never saw a light come on, and I remember walking off stage. I wasn't just real fired up about it, but I remember thinking, I'll take that. I mean, it's going to be what it's going to be at this point. I had been there enough that it's going to be what it's going to be, right? So I remember walking back on the bus back there, and everybody just looking at me. I said, that's weird. Normally everybody likes to cut up. You know how it was back there. And the second round, I said, if they'll let me come back, I'm going to try a little harder. So I blew the second round, and I felt a little better about it, but still didn't see the light come on. So I was thinking, man, am I leaving something out? Because you always speed up. I said, man, I just hope I make the third round, because I hadn't really made any major mistakes in my head. You always think you make a little one or two. I said, man, I hope they let me blow. I hope I get to blow in the third anyway. So I come back, got to blow in the third, and I tried to really think I tried to think before I started. All the time when I was the next guy on deck, I'd try to tune the guy in front of me out and try to think about, okay, what have I got to do here? I'd kind of walk myself through it. And I remember walking up there for the third, it just felt automatic. And I just blew. And when it was over, I said, yeah, it was pretty good. It was all right, Maybe I placed. And I remember going back on the bus there, and folks, you know how guys are. Well, so-and-so, so-and-so. And a couple of folks said, man, I think you got it. I said, man, I don't know. I said, I made it this far. It is what it is.
Had your heart broken before.
Yeah, exactly. So you try not to get yourself too into it, So I remember when we walked out front there, and I seen all my buddies and family up there close to the stage. I had a really good feeling. I had, as you probably remember yourself. So that's how it worked out, and they called my name. I was fired up, man. That was cool.
Yeah, and for the listeners that are not familiar with the duck calling contest, where you're talking about the light come on, when you have 10 seconds left in your routine, that light comes on to tell you you're about to run out of time. So you didn't see the light, so you were moving at a pretty good pace.
Yeah,
you were jazzed up, and you were in that groove, and you were moving through your routine pretty quick.
Kind of what had me concerned, to be honest with you, because I was thinking, okay, why didn't I? Because normally I really practice timing going into 05 and 06. Tried to really work on my timing. And I remember thinking that. And I thought, man, what am I missing? Mm-hmm. Or I got thinking, you're blowing so fast that they're not scoring you. Like, you're not getting a really good score. You're in there, but you're not getting where you need to be.
Yeah, and as far as the buddies, they post, they expose your score after the first round to the crowd. They know what you got. They know what you get for the second round. That third round's hidden. So even though I'm just trying to put myself in your shoes, even though you look out there and when you see your buddies up there and you know that you did good in round one, round two, you suspected you did, but they could be wrong. Your last round, they don't know for sure that you won, but they're feeling good about it. They know you're in the hunt.
Correct, exactly. I knew I was going to maybe have another top 5 finish, but I didn't know I had won it. Because to your point, that final, sometimes a lot of things happen and change in the third, as you well know. But anyway, the rest is history. They called my name and people rushed the stage, and that's a cool feeling.
Yeah.
Hey, and I enjoyed being on the other side of that, rushing the stage for buddies or waiting my turn to come congratulate yourself and others. That's a fun part of that game. Right there.
I was unhappy with my performance that night, but I was very happy for you. Sat back and saw that stage get rushed. And one thing stands out to me in my mind is the hug that you gave Rosie, and picking her up, giving her the big hug.
Yeah.
And that was really something to me. I mean, just being your friend and seeing that, knowing Miss Rosie, I could just see that's just a cool thing to see. She stands by you. You're on the road a lot, doing a lot of things together, and yes. I thought about that when I saw y'all together that night.
And that was exactly it, because she, bless her heart, I can remember practicing, or you mentioned Holly Grove, we lived in a 900 square foot house, and I'd practice a lot in the kitchen until I had me a little shed outside to go practice in, and she used to make me feel kind of bad. I'd just lean against the kitchen sink and practice. The next morning, I'd say, well, how'd it sound? She said, I don't know, put me to sleep. But you could blow 2 notes on a goose call in there or a spec call, and you better get out the way. But it didn't bug her, that I could practice in there, and I'd practice in the house, or I'd go to shop and practice. But there was some relief from putting the time in and finally getting that one win, and her sticking by me, and my buddies who stuck by me. Through a lot of those years, we was running Rich and Tone Guide Service. So, man, you was busy really working a lot, hunting and cutting brush right up into that point. And I remember a lot of years there going into the world. I'd go into the world blowing good, but I'd get an allergy from cutting duck blind brush or something. So you'd get there and you'd be coughing and hacking and sneezing. And, that probably took its toll to some degree or another. So buddies had helped me out and pushed me a little bit. So I was happy to do it. It's one of my finer moments. Mm-hmm. And for me, birthing a child, getting married, winning the world were things that really, something you'll never forget.
Absolutely. Now you talk about running the RNT, the Rich and Tone Guide Service. When did you start actually being an employee working for Rich and Tone Duck Calls?
I got to work kind of as a consultant there for a while, but I think I went on the payroll in 2000. I think, as a bona fide employee. Mm-hmm. I think it was 2000. When Angie listens to this, if she'll remind me if it was 2000 or 2000.
We'll text her real quick, find out. Yeah.
Because John bought Rich and Tone in '99. That's when Butch's health was kind of not doing so well. So John took over in '99. John, and then of course Rusty Bullock, myself were kind of early ones. Had some other guys John hired to work in the shop, to do different things. So it grew fairly quickly from there. John's vision was different than Butch's, which is eventually kind of probably caused some struggles. But John was thinking big picture, and it turned out really well. But that's going a whole nother direction.
Yeah. So when did you start RNT-V? When did your show start?
RNT-V started in 2006. Thank you for asking that, because we're celebrating our 15th year on outdoor television. Matter of fact, we're going to have a big episode. They're going to give us a marathon one Saturday afternoon. We're doing an hour-long special. It's going to be pretty cool. And this is our 15th season, so it's 2020, so 2005.
Wow, 15 years, man. That's
15 years.
Congratulations. That's quite an accomplishment.
There's folks run longer. DUTV's longer. There's other shows that's even older than that. But still 15 years on outdoor television, as volatile as that business is something I'm very proud of. And, of course, we were doing videos before that. Back in the day, you either done feature video or on TV, and we kind of transitioned from the video world to just doing outdoor television. An ironic thing, if you get on our website and dig around, way back when we also were doing webisodes and a podcast, and we kind of let off of them to put our efforts towards linear television, to where looking back, if we'd have stayed with not only TV, but put the same effort into the Inside Out, we call it RNT's Inside Out, the webisode, and then I think it's the podcast called Up in the Wheelhouse. If we'd have kept them going, now they're still out there, but if we'd have kept it up and running, man, we'd have been way ahead.
Yeah.
You can always resurrect it, but we'd have been coming from on the front edge then instead of coming from behind.
Right.
That's why I think what you're doing here is a good thing.
Well, thank you. We're enjoying it. Really having fun with it. Wish I had started it back at the time that you're talking about. We're just now getting going with it, but having a blast doing it.
Man, that's good stuff. You know, what's funny is you think about it, to our conversation here, talking about getting a win and different things. Peanut's fixing to be 20. She's born in 2000. 15 years on television. Those 20 years in the middle of your life go really quick. For anybody out there listening, it seems like it was yesterday. And all the memories made in those 20 are strong ones, you know. So I would implore anybody that's listening to enjoy every day for what it is. And you got the youngins, you'll blink your eyes twice and they'll be coming home from college arguing with you over something.
I've heard it said before, and I've got a daughter at home, 6, about to hit 7. And I heard a guy, he told me when, right around the time that she was born, said when you're a parent, the days are long, but the years are short. And the further I get into parenthood, the more I see that he's absolutely right about that.
You bet.
Absolutely right.
You bet. There's a picture made that you talk about that. I got it hanging up in my home office, in my personal shop at home. And it's the night of the world. Peanut got up there, and I was giving her a big hug, and she was like 6 or 7. She's crying. Everybody thought she was crying because I won. No, she's crying because she got trampled, and I had to save her. But
that's not funny that your daughter got trampled. I'm just laughing at the situation.
Yeah. And it made the front page of the paper. My hat's all knocked off, and she's crying. She had, they had her face all painted up from being at the carnival and whatnot. But I see her now, and I think about that picture thinking, wow, that just happened that quick.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember, I guess it was my last one, coming home that morning and just getting up. That Hannah was not very old, and she'd newborn, for the most part, and just spending that time. I remember just laying her down on the floor and just playing with her the night after. That's one of those things that stands out to me. I remember that next morning with her, being so happy that night and finishing that up and spending that time with her. When you can tie those things in with family, it just makes it all that much more special.
It's what makes what we do important. And there's a lot of folks that's not around our way of life that maybe not understand that exactly, but it's a big part of our heritage. Hunting, fishing, duck calling contest, turkey calling contest, goose calling contest, whatever part of it you play, it becomes your lifestyle, and our whole families are involved in that for the most part. And it is important, and it's what keeps a lot of us glued together. And kind of the beauty of the calling sports, I think, are even though we're all competitors, we were all buddies. I mean, how many times we go to them big contests in Kansas City, we all wanted to win and get qualified up there. But what we do Friday night, Saturday night, we all went out and had some beers, went and had something to eat, went and had a good time.
Yeah.
And that's, I think, the beauty of it.
Yeah.
You ain't got out there, it ain't you're not enemies. We're all friends.
Yeah. Sometimes I feel like an old man. Sometimes I'm kind of like the old man talking about these little whippersnappers or something. I see these young guys now. I'm like, you guys not having fun like we did whenever I was competing. I don't know what's gotten into these guys. I don't want to pile on the millennials, but what's going on, man?
What has changed? So it does kind of make you wonder. And I don't know that we want to get in there on a public show or not, but it's different. And that's a little why I kind of stick to the administrative side of things nowadays.
Yeah. Well, I sound like an old man. Get out of my yard. That's kind of how I sound talking about this. But I look at that, and you know what? The generations before us probably looked at us and thought, man,
thing.
We're not doing it the way we did it.
I know. I remember David Starks was riding me in the truck one time. I had to pick him up, took him somewhere, and Brother David, who was one of the greats himself, was talking about something, the way we were doing something on a comeback, something that, man, we just didn't do it that way, They probably said the same thing. You know, and that's life. You know, I remember my dad telling me stuff about, man, if y'all did the kind of stuff we did when we was kids, they'd put you in jail. And now I know for sure if these kids nowadays did what we did, they'd go to jail.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So this, you know, so 15 years, RNT-V, being a host on, you know, and doing this long, and this is what you're known for primarily. People see you, they think about RNT-V. Did you see this life coming years ago? But did you think, man, this is something I want to do? I want to be an outdoor. You watch outdoor TV. Did you ever see yourself being a host of a TV show like this?